Hi, and welcome to Boy Culture with Matthew Rettenmund. This is my first attempt at recording one of my many interviews, and I really couldn't ask for a better first guest than Jenni Olson. She's really a truly amazing filmmaker who's 575 Castro Street, just played Sundance, and is also playing at Berlin. She's a Teddy winner. She's been working with GLAAD and Outfest and so many other organizations over the years, and she's someone I really admire because she takes not only film seriously, but all the ephemeral things surrounding film seriously. Her collection of film memorabilia is at Harvard. I really wanted to speak to her because I feel like she has so much to offer, and she's already offered so much to the world of film, and especially queer film. So take a look, take a listen, let me know how you like it, and there's more to come. I just want to start out by asking you how you got into film to begin with. We're both from the Midwest. We both got into film.
Oh gosh. Well, I read Vito Russo's book, The Celluloid Closet. Basically, I always say, it changed my life. Maybe it saved my life. I read it in college and it was how I came out and was like, I want to see these films and I bet other people do too. And uh, decided to start a gay film series on campus. And it was just the beginning of everything. And
Well, were you more of a collector to begin with, or when did you become sort of an archivist in your mind? Because that's something that I think about a lot.
I feel like it is all of a piece. I kind of very quickly started collecting and I started programming, doing this queer film series, which then led to being the festival co-director at Frameline and in San Francisco. Um, and then I also simultaneously started being a film critic, reviewing films for the local gay paper, and then I also simultaneously started, collecting actual celluloid, 35 millimeter movie trailers was my first thing. Partly they were affordable. Of course, this was long before eBay, and you had to subscribe to the collector's monthly newspaper to buy and sell and trade things. And so it kind of all, was my whole life.
I used
Yeah.
to do that with records with Goldmine magazine, and I just wonder, like at the time that you were collecting, did people think it had any value? Or 'cause it seems to be relatively recently that film and ephemeral film things have become so popular, so hot.
It's true, I guess on the bright side, it wasn't as quote unquote valuable, and so I was able to buy all kinds of things, and the value wasn't as recognized. And if you think about it, the things that are most ephemeral, that seem like they are not valuable, actually often turns out they are. And so I have all these kind of incredible special things, the thing I'm always most proud of is, Queens at Heart, the 1967 for trans women in New York City talking about being trans short documentary. It's just an incredible thing. And I bought this 35 millimeter print of it, actually just based on the title, Queens at Heart. It was something that hadn't been written about in any literature of queer film history. And so it was this kind of, rediscovery of it. And then worked with UCLA Film and Television Archive to get it restored. And um, yeah,
That's exciting because it's something that was lost, but no one knew it was lost.
yeah. So I felt, even more proud, feel even more proud. Yeah.
How do films get lost? Some people find it so hard to believe that any kind of film or video would become permanently lost, but how does that happen?
I mean, there's so many, I'm trying to think of other examples, but and I do so many things in my career. One of the other things that I do is this thing called the Bresson Project, where I've
Yes.
worked to restore and re-release the films of Arthur J. Bresson Jr., who was a incredible gay filmmaker in the 70s and 80s. And actually that's a really great example. He died of AIDS in 1987. His sister, who's amazing, Ro Bresson, she actually donated all of his materials to Frameline. which was a really good thing. And when I was at Frameland in the early 90s, we had all that material, just boxes and boxes of stuff. But there was a point where we fell out of touch with Roe, and she was the rights holder as the mm, owner of the estate, and so we couldn't really do anything with the material because we didn't have contact with the rights holder. So that's like a big one of the big ways that things will get lost or kind of fall through the cracks, even though we actually physically had the materials. And then it was in like 2018 that I finally figured out how to reconnect with her. And we just immediately started working on the restorations and re-releases. But all that time, Arthur's work had really fallen out of availability. Um, and so it has been even more exciting that, for it to come back. And but I think, these kinds of things happen, all the time. But it takes individual people who care, to put their time and energy into it. Because it's not like there's like huge money to be made. It's mostly, yeah,
But
people
as an
who care.
archivist, to someone who's so devoted to the details, it must blow your mind that certain things just vanish because people throw them away and don't care about them, or the artist dies and their family doesn't realize the importance. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and that's where I'm Roe is so amazing that she did, recognize the value of it and got it to an institution where it could, be taken care of.
And for you, you're not a gatekeeper who wants to find things and collect and hoard things. You're someone who wants to put it out there. So how are you sharing the things that you've collected over the years? What's the easiest way to see some of the things you've collected?
I am a hoarder, but in a good way. Uh,
You're not a jealous hoarder. It's not all hidden.
I'm a yeah, generous hoarder, I
Yes.
guess. Well, I mean, I was really lucky a few years ago, that the Harvard Film Archive acquired the actual physical prints of my collection, which is, all kinds of 35 millimeter trailers and features and 16 millimeter features and old TV shows and commercials and
Yeah.
ephemeral things and, all queer kinds of things. And so they actually have all the physical stuff and are taking care of it, which is really nice. And then some things are available in other ways, like my trailer program, Homo Promo, which
Yes.
is like
Classic.
the queer trailers of the 60s and 70s of stuff like The Boys in the Band and Killing a Sister George. That's available through Canopy, which is nice. Queens at Heart is available through Canopy. And I make a tiny bit of money through it, which is nice, like to, you know, maintain my addictions.
That was like the prototypical social media. Now on social media, everything is kind of showing people old trailers, old clips from movies, old shows. And I immediately think of things like Homo Promo, and how exciting it was at the time because no one was doing that.
It's been really sweet actually. On Instagram, there's a bunch of accounts that share clips and stuff, and particularly Queens at Heart has gotten so much circulation, and it's been
Yes.
nice that it's really nice when people tag me and give me my little, credit. That just feels nice. But it's a cool thing, and it's cool that people and especially young people, but whatever, everyone is so excited about our history and the thing that we always say, we have always been here. And
Yeah.
there it is. Yeah. Yeah.
And visibility matters, and it matters even more when it's moving images. I think it makes it even more human and more relatable to people.
Yeah. I work for GLAAD now. And my so Vito Russo, who wrote The Celluloid Closet, was a friend and mentor and, just such an amazing person. He was also one of the founders of GLAAD. And, this whole thing of the importance of LGBT representation on screen, seeing ourselves, and um, it's just so moving to me to be, to get to be at GLAAD now, and yeah, um, and to segue to the thing that's going on in my life right now, I have my 2008 short,
Yes.
575 Castro Street. that just had a really lovely screening at Sundance as part of the Legacy Shorts program. And then it's also the 40th anniversary of the Teddy Award in Berlin, and they're showing it, which, you know, is like whatever. It all feels like such an honor to have my little short picked out amongst, so many films that they could show.
Like
Um,
the height of an honor that you could receive. It's amazing.
Yeah. And it's extra nice that 575 Castro Street is also because it's, from 2008, it's available widely so everyone can watch it. You don't have to be at the Berlin Film Festival. It also has this like very meta quality that because it so I was commissioned to make it by Focus Features for the release of Gus Van Sant's film Milk, which, such an amazing film and went on to win Best Screenplay and Best Actor Oscars. I love being my little tiny movies being associated with this, huge Oscar-winning film. But I got to shoot on the set, the Castro Camera Store set of Milk, and so that's like the visual track. And then for the audio track, I had actually helped with the restoration of this cassette tape that Harvey had made to be played in the event of his assassination, which of course is quite powerful to, really intense to listen to. And it's anyway, I it's a I feel very proud of it as a film and that it, is really foregrounding him and his messages of how important it is that we're out there. It's so intense, 50 years later. I mean, that we're in the landscape that we're in, which has, so many parallels of being just absolutely under attack from the right and this political fear mongering uh, that is such obvious political fear mongering. Yeah.
When you shot that film, did you know exactly what the concept was? Were you shooting it knowing you were gonna use his voice? And it's almost like looking at a photo album of old images actually speaking, as opposed to the speech that we invent when we look at these old photos. To hear his voice, it feels like they're coming alive.
Yeah, it is my aesthetic as a filmmaker, my shtick is that I mean, generally, the rest of my work, I shoot 16 millimeter urban landscape exteriors that are very contemplative, very static. And the idea is that it is this kind of, yeah, evocative background for the voiceover. And in my other films, it's my voice. Um, rambling on about queer things. But that it is a very specific choice in my craft to that you're seeing this kind of and in the case of 575 Castro Street, it's this kind of almost light and motion study of what's happening on the walls of the camera store. And that it works so that it foregrounds your ability to listen and that it enhances your emotional experience. Um,
It's so
yeah.
sobering that he felt the need to record what should happen if he's assassinated, and then to have him give instructions for what, Mayor Moscone should do without realizing that he would die at the same time. I just find it so chilling to listen to.
It is really yeah, chilling is exactly the it's like you kind of it just, like, takes your breath away, the whole thing. I mean, I've listened to it, I don't know, 50 times, and every time is so powerful. And he was just such a great speaker. He's so inspiring, and I love that it also that it spoiler alert, that it ends with his you gotta give him hope" line, that the which is in relation to particularly in relation to young people um, and the importance of being out.
It makes you wonder. I always wondered this about him, but I think watching your film even more so, it makes you wonder what he would have made of everything that came after, because he had such a vision of the way things should go. And it makes you wonder, like, how would he have reacted to AIDS, to, gay marriage, to all the different fights that we've had, gender. There's so many things that have come up just in those 50 years. And I feel like listening to his words toward the end of his life really evokes that, and really makes me wonder what he would have thought.
It's interesting that you say that. It makes me think of something that, and this is slightly digressive, which is how I am. One of the best things when I put the film out, my kids were in um, middle school at the time, and one of the best things was that I got to go every year to their school and give a presentation to the kids about who Harvey Milk was. And, again, like I'm saying, like how important it is for young people to be like, hey, here's this guy. He was gay, whatever. He was a hero. All the kids there who are gay, who are, whatever, figuring it out, are like, oh my God, this guy's this great guy who's a hero. But one of the things that I talked about a lot was how Harvey's, as a, being on the board of supervisors, he was this very intersectional thinker. And like he talked about everyone's rights, and he talked about all of the different communities in San Francisco. And so I particularly am thinking about, right now, and particularly what's going on in Minnesota, and the sense of intersectionality and especially around, to me, like the intersections between political fear mongering around immigrants and political fear mongering around trans people. And that, if you step back, it's so completely obvious that that is what this is, and
Yeah.
that they are the same thing, picking a group of people that people are a little afraid of or don't understand, and then, filling the vacuum with hate and fear. And I think that, so I think of Harvey in that, that he, and that he would cut through the bullshit and be like, this is bullshit, and like, stop it. But anyway, that's what comes to mind when you mention that. Yeah.
But then when it ends, I mean, when he says you've got to give him hope, that takes away the chill and makes it, I think, a much warmer experience. And it does make me think about, well, what have we been doing to give people hope? What can we do to give people hope? What do you think you're doing to give people hope? Because I feel like your films are in a continuum of giving people hope, of showing people queer expression. They all have like this wonderful kind of essay like quality. They're very poetic. Is that how you see yourself giving people hope through your films?
Sometimes I think my whole shtick is to be extremely humble and maybe a little too humble, um, but I don't know. I mean, I have like a few different thoughts about that. I'm working on a new film right now that should be done by the end of this year, and hopefully will premiere early next year. And it's called Tell Me Everything Will Be Okay.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because every time I say that title to people in these times, they're like, "Oh my God, yeah, t tell me everything will be okay." And but the truth is that title and the film itself is not about what's going on in the world and this political moment, even though, of course, you immediately think of that. And so, I mean, there will be some reference to whatever the political moment in the film, but my work does end up have these kinds of, I don't know, social justice components to it, but mostly it's about, and this is where it's about like trying to connect with people on a much more personal level, and a much less literal, direct, I don't know, social justice level. It's funny, yeah, I'm like suddenly feeling very inarticulate about my work. But it does connect back to what we were saying about the importance of seeing ourselves represented on screen. And like the main drive in my work is always about speaking as someone who's gender nonconforming, and that even though it's not like about being butch or mask, the most important thing to me is that folks who are gender nonconforming, or particularly, folks like myself, are like, oh my God, I'm seeing myself on screen, and this, is speaking to my experience, and I feel, less alone, and I feel entertained, and also that we're all connecting of like across our, common humanity, if you will.
Right.
Um, and I just the last thing about it, and which is the thing that I do say that I think provides hope every time I have a microphone in my hand, is you know, amidst everything that's happening, and especially the attacks on trans people, we have each other as a community, and we're amazing. And that is the thing that we have to hang on to. Um, yeah, and I think something of that will be in the film. And but and yeah, I guess that's my little hope message. Yeah.
You're talking about how we have each other and how it feels so great to sort of see representations of ourselves. Can you talk a little bit about you have a project called Queer Photo Archive? I just saw
Wow.
it. I thought it was amazing because it was just these photos of all these butch women without really any explanation of what the photos were from. But that's all you need. You see that and it just tells such a story.
Oh, thanks for asking about that. I have so many things that I get to do that I don't know. Yeah, this is another of my like obsessive hoarding things. The Queer Photo Archive is it's a collection of the kind of original 8 by 10 wire service photos
Mm,
going back to like the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I even have some from the 1920s. And I started collecting them based on just like there's all these examples of people who were particularly arrested, like,
right,
and the headlines are, like one of the most significant ones is this person Jack Star, and the headlines were he's a she, these kinds of, and they're not, so they're kind of not nice headlines mostly. But what you realize cumulatively, is that you have all of these, AFAB folks, right, assigned female at birth people who, lived as men and then, would be arrested at any given moment or whatever, be revealed like, oh, they were not, assigned male at birth. I mean, it's super interesting to imagine myself. I mainly identify as butch, gender nonconforming. If I lived 100 years ago, like I couldn't go around like this and not be and just be like, whatever. Like I don't have to explain myself. I would either you would have to choose,
right,
and I'm not going around in a dress. like um, and so, but but it's so interesting how our identities evolve over time and in history, what options we have available to us in terms of how we describe ourselves, how we experience ourselves, how we are reflected back to ourselves in culture or not reflected back. But it's this amazing thing, and especially when you look at them all together, and you're just like, "Oh my god!" There's like endless stories of these guys being arrested, and so I did write. I wrote a piece about it called "Criminals, Rebels, Pioneers." Like I love this aspect that, like, they were criminals for you know, passing, and rebels, and they were pioneers, and they were, heroes. How would you live your life 100 years ago? And many of them, if they were, alive now, they might very well be trans men, or they might be butch, or non-binary, or you know, don't make me choose uh,
right.
me. And, it's like, we have always been here. It's amazing to see. It's especially amazing to see these images from 100 years ago and be like, this totally looks like someone I literally saw yesterday at the queer bar, and like, really, seriously. Um,
Well, we've always
so
been here, but they had it a lot harder because it is like you say, when you see those images, I just think, how did you live like this? Like, how did you go through society? How did you go shopping? I mean, like, there's pictures of drag queens on the street in the 50s, and I just think, how did you do that? I'd be afraid to do that now. And
Right.
their stories are to a large extent they're lost, but you can imagine what a lot of the stories would have been like, and the photos are there to do that. I think.
Yeah, and so in some examples, I have done some research, and actually, like the main one that I had started with and did a ton of research on is this guy Jack Starr, who
That name.
was in Montana in the 30s and 40s, and was repeatedly arrested over literally decades. And there's newspaper headlines. I worked on a HBO Max series a few years ago called Equal that's still on, and we did a segment on Jack Starr with Theo Germain playing Jack Starr, um, and just a little kind of evocation of that story.
Could you talk a little bit about your work with the Bresson project? I find that interesting because I came to him through Buddies, which is such an astonishing film. And he also did porn. How did you become involved with that in particular?
Yeah, well, so because of being at Frameline and in the early 90s, and Frameline had all of the materials, like the negatives and the audio stuff and like all the original materials. That was originally how I knew about his work. Actually, though, even earlier than that, it was through buddies. In 1987, when I programmed my film series in Minnesota, I showed Buddies. Buddies was the second film I ever curated as a programmer, so that was my original introduction to it. But yeah, when I was at Frameline, we had all of the materials there, and yeah, like I was saying, we had fallen out of touch with his sister, and so wasn't until 2018 that I got back in touch with her, and then the whole project has been there have been kind of these just angels involved in like helping make things happen because film restoration is really expensive, and so there's a company called Vinegar Syndrome. This guy
I
Joe
haven't heard of
Rubin, Joe Rubin has just been like particularly the angel of the project. Like he was like, "Yeah, sure, we'll just do the restoration, we'll do the new scan, don't worry about it." And we put it back out, did a kind of festivals and theatrical release, and then Blu-ray and digital, um and yeah, so we've just kind of gone one by one through all of his films doing that. Gay USA, of course, which is from 1977. Amazing feature documentary. Um, and then his adult films, which are amazing. Also, the most romantic gay porn you will ever see. um, uh, his 1974 film Passing Strangers and 1979 Forbidden Letters. And then we just, I guess last year did his films from the mid 80s, Juice and Daddy Dearest. And yeah, they're just fantastic. I mean, they are porn as well.
Do you find that gay men are usually interested in gay male films and lesbians are usually into lesbian films and there's not a lot of crossover? Has that been changing?
Um, I guess maybe it's changing a little bit. I think mostly not. As you say that, I'm always reminded of my friend Alonso Duralde, who's like such a great queer film critic, and I just remember him saying to like gay audiences, to gay men, he's like, "Would it kill you to see a lesbian film?"
Like, go see Go Fish, just see something.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
But but there is definitely a mainstream kind of more of a mainstream appreciation of queer stories, I would think.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And yeah, and as it continues to be that like we get a few big queer movies every year.
We get them. It's like what you're saying. It's true. It feels like we're allowed. Like, okay, you're getting a heat rivalry this year, and that's it for you.
Like that. Yeah.
The last thing I was going to ask you is just what's coming up next. I know you're finishing a film, but do you work in such a way that you have things in the future, or how do you do that?
Mainly, I'm really focused on this new film, Tell Me Everything Will Be Okay, and that will be yeah, again, should, God willing, be done at the end of the year and coming out in 2027. And my full-time job at GLAAD and like all the work that we do trying to make the world a safer place and get, you know, more LGBT representation and um yeah, we have our work cut out for us.
Well, but I will just tell you, everything will be okay.
That's funny. That's exactly why I came up with the title of the film is like also we all want someone to and that we can yeah, we can reassure each other. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me. I think that was a lot of fun. I really love Jenny. I think she's so authentic and has so much to offer the world of film. And she really deserves all the awards and accolades she's received. If you want to see more, go to boyculture.com for the entire interview. And you can also watch 575 Castro Street there.